Hi, I'm Sarah Couture. Welcome to Made to Design. I'm the principal of Sarah Couture Design, and I love to feature the interesting stories of other designers who are doing great things in the design world. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the show. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're super excited to have an interesting conversation with Jen and Craig and talk about what we're just labeling Sketching 101. The three of us are involved in the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art. We're all part of the Chicago Midwest chapter. Craig and I are both in the Indiana Regional Committee, and Jen is in Minneapolis. That's how the three of us met, and we're all part of sketching tours throughout the year. And we thought it would be great to have this conversation so that people who may be new to sketching, have no idea what that even means, be intimidated by the concept of sketching, we can kind of break it down, demystify it a little bit, kind of show the spectrum of expertise of those who are coming to these events, because it's for everyone. But hopefully we'll just have a fun conversation. My name is Sarah Couture. I own Sarah Couture Design. I'm a residential interior designer based in Indianapolis. I'm also a nurse by background and am getting additional training in healthcare design. So looking forward to being involved in the healthcare design world in the coming years. Jen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate being a part of this conversation. I am, again, my name's Jen Nash-Kochever, and I am the president of J&K Art Partners. And what we do is we are a fine art consulting business where we go out into people's homes. We partner with them around placing fine art in their homes or offices. They're places where they need artwork. I'm also the co-owner of Gallery 366 in the Twin Cities. I'm also, as Sarah mentioned, I'm the regional subcommittee chair for the Minneapolis Twin Cities ICAA efforts, our regional team. I'm also on the board of the Florence Academy of Art. So that's me. Craig, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Thanks, Sarah. My name's Craig Farnsworth. I'm a professor of landscape architecture at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. And I've been involved with the ICAA for, almost 30 years now, believe it or not. I was a participant in one of the first Rome drawing tours with the ICAA and have been sketching and drawing as part of my practice in landscape architecture for really my whole career. I was in private practice for about 30 years, primarily in Chicago. And so drawing was part of my design process. It wasn't necessarily only used as sketching for enjoyment, although that was certainly part of it. But it was a tool that I used in ideating and creating my designs and communicating with other designers, communicating with clients. And so drawing has always been very central to the way I think about spaces and objects and really thinking about them in ways that I can remember better. I think one of the things that happens oftentimes when we go on vacation and take a lot of photographs is we get hundreds, maybe thousands of photos, and we never really remember some of the things that we took pictures of. But when I found that if I take a few minutes or even longer and really sit and look and inspect and draw, maybe measure and record, those things that stuck out to me as being important really remain in my memory. And I can draw on those then literally and figuratively as part of a design later on. So drawing has become, for me, very central to how I think about design and landscape architecture in particular. So about 7 years ago, I pivoted and became full-time professor at my alma mater here at Ball State. And so I have the privilege of teaching next generation of students the importance of drawing, which is really important, I think, in this day of computer-aided design and now AI, where it's easy to kind of give over the reins of graphic design, as it were, to a machine, to a computer. And for students to realize that there's still a very important triad between the mind, the hand, and the eye, and to use that to record what they see and just enjoy that process, something that a machine will never be able to do for us. And I think that being comfortable with drawing and being willing to pick up a pencil or a pen and start making marks on paper is a privilege and something that we can enjoy. So I know we'll get back into some of these themes a little bit later, but those are some of the ideas that I like to share with my students.
I love that. And I'm glad I made a note here for us to come back to the hand versus digital, because I think people assume, oh yeah, if you're an architect, a landscape architect, you're just like doing your designs in the computer. So like, I think,
Mhm.
today we're talking about sketching and drawing for those who come to our ICA events primarily, but like, I think that's a really interesting concept. Maybe we can unpack that a little bit more at the end, or maybe have another conversation because and I love to hear that. I mean, I wrote down what you said, connecting the mind, the hand, and the eye.
Yeah.
I love that. And that design is very iterative. I think you
Mhm.
have to do that to like keep the designs going. So Craig, like Craig just mentioned, we want people to feel comfortable with what we do. Not everyone is Craig Farnsworth, who has been drawing,
Uh-oh.
including in Rome and Athens for decades. That can be a little bit intimidating, knowing that we have architects who come to our events, we have architecture students, we have interior designers, we have artists, but we also just have people who love classical art and architecture. We have those enthusiasts. I've got a kid at my church who's a junior in high school and he's interested in architecture and design. I am going to invite him to these events. He's going to love it. But it could be very intimidating if you've never done it before, if you've never picked up that pencil and just been like, I'm going to sit here and sketch what's in front of me. We
Mhm.
also don't take time, right? We are always on the go. So sitting down to draw something almost feels like a luxury, like reading a magazine or laying in a hammock. So we have to take time to do those things. So Craig, we're eager to we're going to start the conversation with you, knowing that the theme is, what are we even talking about? What is sketching? When we say come to a sketching tour, which we're going to have on September 25th in Muncie, or Jen is having each month in Minneapolis, what are we talking about? Like, what is a sketching tour? What happens? What do we do on this event?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I think one of the things that is important to think about at the very beginning here is that we're not making drawings that necessarily look like photographs. And I think that's very important. When people hear, oh, a drawing tour, a sketching tour, I'm going to be drawing perspectives, or I'm going to be drawing, painting with an easel and doing something really involved, and I don't have the time or energy or background to do that, so I'm not interested. I think if we can remove the pressure of making a drawing look like a photograph and realize from the get-go that it is not meant to be that, it is really just a very personal engagement and recording of our surroundings that was done in a specific time and place. And it can be a 30-second gesture sketch that just, how was I feeling? How did I respond to this? A few marks on the page, and that's it. And it could be something that maybe we spend a little bit more time, 20, 30 minutes, and do some recording. But I think one of the things and I really try to emphasize this with my students, is that when we do a drawing tour or a sketch tour, we don't necessarily just draw big perspectives. Everything I can see, it's the big panorama. That can be overwhelming. Sometimes it's an individual leaf or a profile of a tree, or maybe I'm just only going to draw the shadows that are cast on a facade by something. So it starts to merge the physical, recording of objects and spaces, but becoming a little bit more artistic sometimes and saying, what do I want to remember about this? Sometimes we do it in color, but we don't have to. And I found that sometimes it's easier to begin drawing with just black and white implements, a pencil or a pen, and leave it at that. Unless you're using black and white filters or black and white film, you're probably going to be taking a photograph that's in color. So as soon as you do things only in black and white, now you're thinking about the scene in a personal way. It's abstracted a little bit, and without getting maybe too nerdy here about what we're doing, they really emphasize value over color. And I think that's something that I was it took me a little while to understand in my drawing career. But there's this great slogan that I've heard, and that is that in drawing, value does the hard work and color gets all the credit. And I think that's so true. If we always think that, oh, I've got to use color to make this drawing look great, and that really isn't necessarily true. I think it's value. Even if you're working with color, it's how light and dark are juxtaposed against each other, and how that creates the form. And as designers of space, or as art enthusiasts, I think it's important for us to understand how light influences and helps us understand form. And as soon as you're working with value, that's really where your mind is at. And so it helps me as a designer understand surfaces, materials, scale, proportion, and color doesn't even enter into that. And so maybe that's a long way around to your question, which is, what do we mean by a sketch crawl or sketch tour? And for me, it's simply being in a space and finding something that's of interest to me and starting to record it, and not worrying about, is this a photograph or not? And just letting the drawing evolve, and sometimes letting a drawing merge into a second drawing or a third drawing. It almost becomes a collage or a multi-view assemblage of images that a photograph wouldn't be able to do. In Photoshop, sure, you could do that, but it wouldn't be necessarily something you would do with a iPhone camera. And those multi-view or multiple views can be really great ways to record an experience.
Is there a difference between sketching and drawing? Are those the same?
Yeah, there probably is a difference, but they're used interchangeably. I think if I were to try to parse the two out a little bit, I'd say sketching is a little bit more quick, a little bit more on site. Drawing could be more studio based, a little more deliberate or labored. You think of drafting, perhaps, old school, straight edge triangles, pencils, that would be drawing or drafting. Drawing might be thinking more about a finished product or a final effort of some sort, whereas sketching, I think, just almost it's this built-in assumption that it doesn't necessarily have a life after the event. It's just an engagement in a time and a place. So I wouldn't want to put pressure on people to say we're doing a drawing tour.
Okay.
But it might certainly be a sketch that evolves into something that they think, hey, this is more of a drawing. So I don't know if that's an official definition. That's just kind
I like
of
it though.
definition. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's almost like sketching is like our response.
Mm-hmm.
The mind, hand, eye, it's like our response, what we put on paper to what we're feeling, what we're seeing in that moment. Jen, I know you all in Minnesota have already started. You had early success in your sketching events, and now you're doing them monthly. So kind of tell us, what are you doing? Who's coming? What kind of people are coming? Share with us what's going on in your sketching events.
Yeah, we started doing a sketching. I think we did our first event in April, and we decided that we wanted to do it monthly. So we do sketching tours every month, the last Saturday of the month, and we pick different places around the Twin Cities that have interesting architecture to go sketch. And they're 2 hours long. The first one, we went to the James J. Hill House, which is over in St. Paul. Last month, we went to the St. Paul Cathedral, which in their courtyard, which of course has the architecture there is beautiful. Next month, we're going to Lakewood Cemetery, which has very classical buildings on the premise. And the idea is, a lot of what we're doing is building community. I wrote down the word relationship. It's there's the relationship, like you said, Craig, the hand to eye to what you're seeing. The relationship to nature, the relationship to what's in front of us, the relationship to the people next to us, the relationship to the community, the greater community, and the history of the community. And so that's one of the intents that we have in doing this, is creating relationship among us. And this is a way that we do that. And in turn, like the people that show up, we have people that are members, we have people that are non-members, we have people that are very skilled drawers, sketchers, architects that have, in the 2 hours that we're together, have rendered beautiful sketches. We have people, I am not an artist. I represent artists. I'm on the board of a school that the first year, all anybody does in the curriculum is learn how to draw from life, from nature, it's like you were talking about, Craig. There's a difference between copying something, which has its place, and responding to what's in front of one's in nature, wherever that is. And all the artists that I work, parenthetically, all the artists I work with work from life or from their imagination. So I'm not an artist, and I go with my pencil and my eraser and my sketch pad, and I do the best that I can. We've had enthusiasts that are just like, I want to come and watch. I want to come and see what's happening. And I don't draw, but I'm going to try. And then everywhere in the middle. So the basic structure is, we all get there, we meet, everybody goes off and finds their own, what pulls at their heart that they want to draw. And like you were saying, Craig, sometimes it's just a little, at the end of a door, like the edge of it or the handle of it, it's something just very small that they want to really dive into. Sometimes it's been very long, the whole building. We've got a lead person that walks around, who's an ICA member who walks around and supports them, does a little bit of, guidance, critiquing. And a lot of it is, we're all sitting together. And sometimes, like at one of them, there was a designer, myself, and a builder who were all kind of sketching in the same direction. And then there was another gentleman who was sketching our boots that we were all sitting there, in a line, and he was sketching because that's what inspires him and excites him. It didn't have to be. And at the end of the afternoon, we all put all the sketches out, lay them all out. And then we talk about them and how was the experience. And it's not about better, best. It's about just sharing in the moment, sharing the experience, sharing a common love for expressing artistically, sharing beauty and aesthetics and where we're brilliant and where we're not. And where, again, like Craig, what you said, it's not about the finished product. It's just about being together to do that. And some people are honing their skills. Some people are like, this is something I need to do to hone my skill. And that's great. And I know I have artists. One artist that I represent is a plein air painter, and she's going to come and set up her easel and do a 2-hour plein air sketch. So it's a wide range of people that are coming. It's a fun experience, and it's building community around a common language.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, like, we're going to have our first Indiana sketching event, September 25th, like I mentioned. It'll be interesting to see if there's enough engagement where people want to do it more often than we are, Jen. Like, I love doing it each month. Craig, I guess we haven't really started to plan our September 25th sketching event, which we'll be sketching buildings in Muncie, Indiana, architecture. What do you kind of envision for that day? Maybe you can tell us what's there, what will we be seeing, what inspires you about our venue for September 25th?
Yeah, well, I think, as with any city, there are a lot of different places you could go, but we want to spend our time drawing and not necessarily walking or, heaven forbid, driving from place to place, right? So Ball State is named after the Ball brothers, and the Ball family has had a long history of involvement, civic engagement, and so on in the city of Muncie. And back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the 5 Ball brothers built houses side by side. So there's kind of a compound, if you will, along a bend in the White River, kind of overlooking the river. And those houses are really nice examples of kind of shingle style, neo-colonial, classical revival houses. Each brother kind of had his own take on what he wanted. And so there are and that compound's known as Minnetrista. The translation of that is let us gather by the waters. It's kind of Indian and English words put together. And so it's this gathering place by the waters, which has a nice ring to it as well for a sketching group that wants to gather and do some drawings and build community. But wonderful architecture. We've got the river, a bend in the river, so there's a lot of natural scenery. There's also a museum on the grounds. It's actually a cultural center, which is open to the public. And so there are artifacts within the museum. If people, let's say we got a little bit of rain or it was chilly or something, people want to go inside and draw. There are things there. There's a wooded area where we can draw if people want to do maybe more naturalistic flora and fauna. So I think there are a variety of things to do all on one property. So it'll be relatively easy to find a place of interest and draw. And then one of the 5 mansions is owned by Ball State. And so our hope there is that we would have access to. We haven't secured that permission. It's a little bit early. But generally, we should be able to work inside as well. And some beautiful detailing in as far as woodwork and glass and ceramic work. So wonderful details to draw as well. So I think as far as a kickoff event, that would be a wonderful location, very accessible, and a lot to draw. So I think that would be great.
Sounds amazing. Jen, you might want to come down and visit.
Okay, well, I know. I think I will. I'm inspired.
Yeah.
So, Craig,
Mhm.
what should people bring if they've never done this? They've never
Yeah.
come to a sketching event. Like, what
Mhm.
sort of supplies should we bring with us?
Yeah, keep it simple. I would say first thing, something to draw on, right? I typically use like a 5x8 or maybe 8x10 sketchbook, spiral bound, or something that can lay flat. So if I really want to, I can work over the fold or the margin and have a longer, 2-page spread. But there's no need to bring a really large easel. And by the same token, I wouldn't go to the other extreme either and bring like a 3x5 index card type size. I think sure, you could do that, but that's a little bit limiting, and it's nice to have a little bit more paper to maybe rest your hand on even while you're sketching. So there's something to draw on, the paper. Although, having said that, I know somebody that does beautiful urban sketches on the inside of a cereal box. He flattens a cardboard cereal box and immediately gets a mid-tone, right, kind of the brown paper color. And then by doing that, he uses ink and Prismacolor pencils and goes either lighter with whites and yellows or darker colors and values, and has wonderful drawings that he does. So that's as soon as I say a paper notebook, there are certainly variants on that can be extremely. So the main thing is to be comfortable with what you're going to draw on. Then what do you draw with? I personally, I like a soft pencil, meaning that the lead is soft. So it might be like a 2B. I wouldn't use like anything with an H, like a 2H pencil. That would be your drafting kind of lead. But even a number 2 pencil is okay. But I like to be able to go softer because that gets into my discussion earlier about value, being able to really make some dark marks on that. And a lot of times I find if students aren't interested in, or they're not feeling like their drawing is successful, a lot of times it's because they haven't pushed the values dark enough. There's no dark in the drawing. Everything's kind of a mid to meh, kind of blah, light, and so on. And the same thing goes for watercolor. If you're not pushing your values, you're probably ending up with an anemic kind of lackluster image. And so you want to be able to get dark with your drawing implement. So that's why I like pencil. Pen can be great. I use, and we'll put links in this too, right?
Love that.
So at the bottom of this, we'll put some links. So, I'll share some, pens and pencils. But when I use pens, I try to make sure that they're waterproof so that if I do add watercolor, the ink won't smear and run. So I have options after the fact of doing, if I want to add color to the ink or not. But the thing about ink is it's already black, right? You've already gotten that 100% value. And so it's more of an effort to get that mid-tone. And there are certainly ways to do it, cross-hatching, stippling, flicking the wrist. I mean, there are a lot of ways to get a mid-tone, but it's not quite as intuitive as taking a pencil and either pressing hard or not pressing hard. And those are the ways you get value. So, if this is too much detail, we can certainly go over that, at the beginning of the sketch crawl and just kind of share some ideas. But I'd say if people brought a 2B pencil, maybe a 4B or 8B even, so you get some soft, bring in waterproof pen, that'd be a really simple way to do it. And then for those that want to get really adventurous, I've been really enjoying water-soluble pencils, which have been really wonderful. Sometimes they're called like pencil watercolors. And so you draw with them and then add water and they become watercolor. But I don't use them as watercolors. I use them as value. And because of that, if when I try to mix them as watercolor, I don't like the results personally. I would rather paint watercolor. But if I use a single color of pencil and add water, now it's just a value study in red or blue or green. And it's really pretty dramatic. And I think understanding how to add some water to water-soluble pencil can really open up some interesting opportunities. So I'll probably be using that. I can demonstrate that. But if people bring, then again, we'll have the links down below so you can see that. And all these supplies, relatively inexpensive, $2 for a pencil or a pen, a notebook could be $10, I suppose. But it's a really limited investment that can bring a lot of enjoyment over a considerable amount of time.
I love that. Okay. And I love what you said. Like, we'll put the links. I mean, those water soluble pencils, I'm excited to check those out. That sounds really interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
And I'm glad you also mentioned on our September 25th event, like we can start with a little coaching. you and others from Ball State who are involved can give us some guidance, give us some direction. So I think that's a great start to that event as well.
Yeah. And like what Jen said too, we can kind of, I would imagine there would be some little bit of coaching, then kind of find your thing. And then we'll kind of circulate a little bit. But if people don't want that, that's fine. Just do your thing. And then at the end, there usually is sort of throwdown. Just, hey, let's celebrate this, see what people have been working on and enjoy the community that's being built, where we can talk about, whether you drew boots or you drew the finial on the, in the architecture, whatever. It's going to be great.
And it's nice. I find, at least with me not being a drawer, that like that's not my passion. I love doing it, or I'm learning to love to do it, but it helps ease it for other people there. Like I had multiple people the first event come up to me and say, thank you for saying that this is not, something you usually do, that you're stretching and taking a risk by actually bringing the paper, bringing the pencil. Because I could have stood there and just said, go for it.
Yeah.
But there was a point of vulnerability of actually opening up the notebook with the pencil and saying, I know this isn't going to be good. I know it. It gave permission for everybody else to just show up and be whoever they were. And they put their paper. I was the first one to put it down. And I knew, that it wasn't, I work with professional artists who do this. Like I was aware. So like I said, people came up to me and said, thank you. I really appreciated that because it gave that permission.
Yeah, I really applaud that mindset. And you use the word vulnerable, and I think that's great. I think that's one thing that builds community, right? That transparency that says, "Hey, I don't have it all figured out." I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm always learning. And I love being around people that teach me new things, and that I can incorporate into my work as well. And it just enriches the experience in so many ways. So I really appreciate that comment.
Thank you. Yeah, it's about building community and having, like, I think maybe that's an important thing. Our group, we give out AIA, but we give out CEUs, ICA CEUs to people who want to do that, who are in that, in that momentum, in that flow and need ICA CEUs. But if that's not important to you, just come and enjoy the day, enjoy the beauty that we're in front of, enjoy the people that we're around. And then we usually go out afterwards. Usually everybody's like, hey, let's go out afterwards and get into interesting conversations. And so really it's a no pressure, low pressure kind of event opportunity. So
I love that. And
yeah, I'm excited for your first one.
Julie Hayes, our Chicago Midwest chapter executive director, mentioned, Craig, that there's a great Mexican restaurant in Muncie, and she's like, that's where you guys should go for lunch. So
okay, well, we've got a few, so yeah, no, that would be good.
Yeah, so we'll work on planning as we get closer. And I'm glad you mentioned, Jen, the CEUs. We will plan on applying for both ICAA CEUs as well as AIA for this event. Since Craig and the Vol State team will be doing some coaching, so one of our committee members will be working on applying for those. So we'll have that to offer. But to Jen's point, that doesn't have to be the reason people come. Come meet people, come hang out. I've lived in Indiana for 5 years, and I didn't know until Kristen Berry, who recommended this event, talked about the great architecture in Muncie. I didn't know that. I've never heard that before. So it's also a great way for us to explore our states.
Yeah. Yeah. This doesn't have to be one and done. I mean, there are a lot of different sites in Muncie, but certainly other communities as well. And and I think one of the takeaways from this is that once you start to record things like that, you realize I can do this anywhere. And I know we've got, Sarah, you've got some other field trips. I won't, spoiler alert on this, right? I won't share that right now, but some other field trips that you're in the works on planning. And I'm really excited to sketch on those too, where the intent isn't necessarily sketching, but to bring your sketchbook along and annotate maybe along with the sketches. Jen, when you were talking about the way that what people were drawing, the guy with the boots, I love that. But it reminded me that sometimes people who maybe they're not great at drawing, but let's say they're a poet or they've got beautiful handwriting, and they merge those things together. So the notes that you take on the tour, you put in with a little marginal sketch, and now you're starting to fuse different ways of communicating in some really interesting and very personal ways that individualize and personalize the work that's being done. So anyway.
That's awesome. Well, any last comments, Craig or Jen?
Well, I was just going to say, like in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities, as you probably know, it gets pretty cold here. So the other thing is we're looking at because we're doing it every month. So right now we're taking advantage of the outdoors and the beauty but also indoors. So it's, as one's thinking about what they're sketching, it can be indoor, it can be outdoor, it can be, there are a lot of different ways to do it. So get creative, get adventuresome, move out of the box and have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I guess I would just reiterate what we said earlier about, being willing to try something. Maybe it's new, or blow the dust off a skill that you worked on, while you were in school 15, 25 years ago, whatever, and say, yeah, I missed that. And I do realize that I've been working in the computer a lot, and I just want to get back to my roots here on this and feel the pencil on the paper and just enjoy. And there's no pressure on it. It's just a way to get to know your surroundings a little bit and meet some new people and have fun doing it.
I love it.
I just had one quick thing. I had a designer tell me at the first event, at the after event, she's like, I don't get to have conversations like this with people. I don't get to do this. Like, she's a soul, I think she works on she's a soul practitioner. And so she's like, I'm either going to clients' homes and talking to them, or I'm out with friends, or I'm with family. Like, I don't talk about aesthetics and proportion and beauty with people on a regular basis. And she said, have missed having that common conversation with other people, that when I say it, they understand it. And it's just like she melted in her chair in joy and was so happy. So that's the other piece, is the common conversation, the common appreciation for the classical styles of architecture, design, art, fine art, and whatnot.
Love it.
We'll end with the whatnot.
And whatnot. Let's end with whatnot. Perfect. Well, Jen and Craig, this has been super. I'm actually very excited for our first event, September 25th. And I think, to your point, Craig, yeah, we can do sketching on our other things that are coming up. And also, maybe it's so great that we do end up doing a monthly. We'll just kind of see how it goes as we're getting our Indiana regional committee off the ground. But thank you both so much for taking time. I really hope that our conversation helps other people feel comfortable, feel confident, feel adventurous, be willing to give it a try, because I really think there's something for everyone. There's something we all can learn. And certainly there are people we can meet, experiences we can have. So thank you both for spending your time this morning. And
I would add, Sarah, that if people are interested, if they don't know ICAA, they've never heard of them, they're interested in joining, they're interested in learning more, they're interested in keeping up with what is going on in the Chicago Midwest chapter or the other chapters of ICAA, to go to the ICAA.com website. And each chapter has its own website from there you can link to. And our ICAA Chicago website has an event page where it lists what events are happening all around our region, including Chicago, Minneapolis, where you are, down in Kansas City. There's a lot happening. So go check them out go check it out.
Yeah. And we'll link that as well. So that's a great call, Jen. Yeah. If you've never heard of Institute of Classical Architecture and Art and you're like, what are these people talking about? Please read about it and join us. And yes, we'll put the events page in the link below so that folks near Minneapolis can be joining you. People in Indiana can be joining Craig and I and the rest of the group. So thanks again. This was super fun. We'll look forward to sketching with you all soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the show, please visit us at sarahcouturedesign.com to hear more about our services, see our portfolio, and read some of our other thoughts on our blog. Have a great day.